It's season 7 of Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Rogue Tulips Consulting. We hit the 300 episode milestone this year, so don't forget to subscribe or follow us. We have a lot more to talk about. This November, we continue our celebration of Thankful for the Arts Month, and we're joined by another first-time guest, Jay Dick, joining us from Americans for the Arts. He's going to talk with us about the arts are not just those SOBs. We will explain that. It's Monday, November 17th, 2025. Welcome to episode 307. Hey, everybody. It's almost Thanksgiving, and we are continuing our theme this month in November of Thankful for the Arts. And in this episode, I am welcoming another first-time guest, Jay Dick. And Jay and I met at the ASAE annual meeting last year where he told me why my case study questions for my SAE course were bunk, but we worked that out later. Hi, I'm Cecilia Sepp. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Radio Free 501c, brought to you by my consulting company, Rogue Tulips Consulting. We're so glad you're here with us today. No matter where you are in this big, beautiful, wonderful world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And if you have not yet subscribed or followed us, please take a moment and do that, because we have already gone way beyond the 300 episode mark, and we have a lot more to talk about. So without further ado, I am pleased to welcome Jay, and he's going to tell us a little about himself in a moment. Because as part of our Thankful for the Arts Month, he is going to talk with us about the arts are not just those SOBs. So Jay, welcome to the podcast. So glad you're here. Would you like to say hello to the audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, all. Hi, Cecilia. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here. I'm so glad to be here. Again, my name is Jay Dick, as I said, or as Cecilia said, and I am the Senior Director of Advocacy and Partnerships at Americans for the Arts. I've been at Americans for the Arts for 21 years. We are the nation's largest research and advocacy organization in the United States, and we work at the federal, state, and local levels to just make sure all of our elected officials, all our key decision makers, and the public at large know that the arts are this incredible, powerful tool that you can be using to advance your economy, to advance your healthcare, and do everything in between. So I'm so happy to be here and look forward to having a nice little conversation with you.
Yes, me too. I was so excited you were interested in joining me at some point this year, because it was great meeting you at the ASAE meeting, and we met through Chuck Salvetti.
Yes.
So can I share your relationship with Chuck? Is that okay? So Chuck and Jay are married, and they're very happily married. So which is great. Always love to hear that, being a longtime married person myself. So
he's on the other side of the wall. He can probably hear us right now. He's on the other side of the wall for me.
He's on the other side of the wall. Hi, Chuck. And it was great that Chuck introduced us, because I really did enjoy the conversation about governance and advocacy and how associations actually get that message out there. And to me, I've been saying on the last couple episodes, I love the arts. I try to support the arts every time I can, in every way I can. I am also something of an artist as a writer. And I like to dabble in things as an amateur just for fun. Building on last week's episode with Cynthia Young, talking about everybody should do art. It's good for us. So, and what you do is you make sure everybody knows why art is good for us. And you're out there talking to the decision makers, the influencers, the legislators, the regulators, and everybody else who can impact the arts community, which always needs help. All throughout history, it's been like that. Probably the people painting on the cave walls needed patrons to pay for that too. But our topic is the arts are not just those SOBs. Now, being from Missouri, SOB means something a little different than it means to you. So can you explain for the audience what you mean by it's not just those SOBs?
Sure. And I'm from Iowa, so I'm just north of you a little bit there. So again, I try to, so part of also, I'm a registered federal lobbyist. And so my job is to communicate the value, in this case, of the arts and the creative economy to those key decision makers. And so if I can do my research and homework or whatever, I try to talk about the arts in a way that that elected official or their staff or whoever will be able to identify with. And so a couple years ago, I came up with, hey, the arts just are those SOBs. So when I would be talking to a group of elected officials, so say the National Conference of State Legislators or the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National Association of Counties, I would say that. I'm like, the arts are just not those SOBs. And they'd all stop and giggle a little bit. And I'm like, symphonies, operas, and ballets. What do you think I mean by SOBs? And of course, they would really laugh. But the key thing, though, is there's two things here. Is one, they're going to remember that joke, okay? And that's what I want them to do. I want those elected officials to remember what happened. And the idea behind SOBs, and I love my symphonies, operas, and ballets. So if there's any symphony, operas, and ballet folks out there, I love you. This is not anything, but you're helping me, tell my story to these elected officials. But what does symphonies, operas, and ballets kind of connote? That the arts are for the elite. The arts are
Yes.
not for the Midwest. The arts are for the coastal regions out there, and certainly the arts are not for rural areas. And I say, no, 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 that's not the case. And so, I say, okay, here's what the arts actually do. The arts are those after school dropout prevention programs. The arts are those healthcare programs that help keep our seniors out of nursing homes into their own homes. It helps our veterans who have PTSD and traumatic brain injury to avoid handfuls of pills and doing stuff really bad to themselves. The arts are even going into, a foreign diplomacy or arts and transportation. And so, again, trying to take those preconceived notions that everyone has preconceived notions, elected officials also, and say, no, this is not what the arts actually are. And so, as again, as someone as an advocate, if I have a little time to know that elected official and know what they like, I'm going to talk about the arts in a way that I'm going to get a yes from them. That an agreement. So if I'm going to go say talk to a very conservative Texas state legislator, I am not going to talk about public art because they don't care. That's not what they care about. But I want to talk about how the arts help with our veterans with PTSD. Then they go, oh, I had no idea. Tell me a little bit more about that. I just opened the door a little bit. I took a legislator who maybe has given no second thought about the arts, and now they're like, oh, that's something cool. And so one of the things that is my favorite little tool I use for elected officials, and they love it, is I have this little pinwheel here, and it's available on our website, americansforthearts.org/social impact. And it's about 30 different arts and topics. And so you can click on one of the topics. So it's art and history, tradition, and heritage. You can click on that. It's going to give you a little definition of what exactly the heck that means. And then double click on it. It's going to open up a 4-page little profile. It gives you some examples of what's going on. And so, again, it's talking about the arts, not just like they're static. It's a place you go, you sit down in a seat, you turn your cell phone off, they turn the lights off, and you sit there and be quiet. It's dynamic, it's interactive. And that's what the elected officials really enjoy, that, hey, no, the arts are so much more than those SOBs, not only just culturally or for our health or different things like that, but also economically. The arts are a $1.3 trillion industry. 4.2% of our gross domestic product. That's bigger than the construction industry, the agricultural industry. We're huge. We just don't have a big skyscraper that says the arts, and we contribute about 27 billion dollars to the local economy, which is a lot more than the arts are appropriated. So we're such a huge part of the industry and the fabric of America, but people just don't realize it. Again, we're one of the best, I think, best kept secrets of our country.
Yeah, the arts. I agree. And the history of the United States, we've actually inspired the creation of different kinds of art. So, like, especially in music, the blues, tap dance, other percussive formats. So it is vibrant, it is active, and it is people contributing. So, and like you also, please save the angry postcards. I also love symphonies, operas, and ballets. So, we're here thanking you for being part of the movement to
Yes.
support art. So, Jay, at the Americans for the Arts, I want to make sure I say it right. Americans for the Arts, who who supports you? Like, do you have members? Do you have donors? I mean, how does that work?
So yeah, so we have both. So American Spirits, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We've been around, I think, 67, 68 years or so. So we've been around, well, different names throughout. throughout the time. Our primary members are what we would call a local arts agency. So those are oftentimes C3 or they're part of city government that their charges is the arts locally with that. So locally here in DC, Arts Fairfax, for example, a group that I live in Fairfax County, so they're a C3 group that they receive funding from the county government. They grant it out. They have their own programs. Montgomery Arts Council, they're part of the county in the same process there. So there's about 3,000 or give or take of those out there around the country. So they're our primary members that are out there. We also have just lots of different symphonies, operas, and ballets that are members of ours too, or all kinds of different individual arts organizations. I also personally work a lot with our statewide arts advocacy organizations. So these are the groups that are in the different 50 states that are the primary advocate to your state house. Their colleagues are the state arts agencies, so the 56 state and territorial state arts agencies, they're government agencies that are out there. And so those are our primary members. We get some members from them. But we talk to anyone. We don't really, I don't check anyone's membership status or anything. We want everyone to be part of it. We do get foundation support. We do get donor support. We were very blessed about 20 years ago. We received a very large gift. So we have an endowment, the Ruth Lilly Foundation, Ruth Lilly Pharmaceuticals. So she bequeathed us about $120 million 20 years ago. So we were able to spin off $6 to $8 million a year for that. So that's enabled us to grow and just be more effective and play again at the federal, state, and local levels out there, and just to really make sure that we are communicating the value of the arts. Because I think again, most of the time, people don't, especially in rural areas, and so, 88% of our counties are rural. There's only about 177 urban counties that are out there. And so the biggest area of opportunity and growth and concern is our rural areas. And so we want to be out there working with those rural areas to make sure the arts are growing and being vibrant out there. And again, it's those local rural elected officials that probably haven't thought about it. But once I have like 10 minutes with them, they go, oh no, I had no clue. There's this arts group out here and blah, blah, blah. And it starts a great conversation with them because they, realize the arts are not this big black hole that you throw money down. It's a place where you invest. You invest money in the arts like you would in your transportation or your healthcare system, and the dividends, come back to help your county. They always say, "Oh, I would love to support the arts, but I have to repave Main Street." Well, the arts will help you repave Main Streets.
That's
We are
right.
a net generating industry. Yeah, you have to have a police station or a firehouse, but they cost money. They're absolutely essential, but they cost money. We actually, again, we generate a lot of support. So it's like, no, we'll help you, pay for something like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Montgomery County's Art Council. That's where I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, and they used to actually be in downtown Silver Spring, but I think they moved back to Rockville or something. I don't think they have their office here anymore. But we also have arts districts in Montgomery County, and those are districts designed to attract people in the arts and support them. And I'm sure they have other benefits like tax
Yeah,
benefits or something like that
we do.
that go along with that. We also have festivals here in Montgomery County, not just the Renaissance Fair. I know everybody knows about that one, but we do have a lot of that. So, Jay, you talked a lot about the kind of gap in understanding where people think, oh, it's all about giving money to symphonies and ballets and operas, and maybe it's just for the elites out there, the people with that kind of money. But I enjoy the ballet, and trust me, I'm not one of those people with a lot of money. But do you also find yourself dealing with the opposite end of the spectrum of people think all artists are just starving and poor all the time?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the trope that's out there, the starving artist.
Mhm.
And, I really have to push back against that. We've done a lot of another Montgomery County resident, Randy Cohen, is our vice president of research. So shout out to Randy. Randy gives me and Americans for the Arts all kinds of great data that I can go out and use because you got to have stories. You have to be able to communicate. But if you don't have the data to back it up, It really doesn't matter with
Right.
that. And so really showing that, the payroll and the average artist, is not the starving artist there. Yeah, you're going to have folks that they dabble in the arts or whatever. But if you're by and large, an artist is actually making, the average, income and stuff like that. And I always try to show, again, I talked about it, we just won't have some big skyscraper that says the arts. There's a whole bunch of just small businesses around this country in every county that are arts centric, where it's a real job with real payroll, real benefits, and stuff along those lines. So we really try to push back and educate folks about that. And I really encourage you to go to our website again, americansforthearts.org/research, and then click on our Arts and Economic Prosperity 6 study, where it gives you, we work with about 370 different local areas to look at number of economic activity of the arts, number of jobs provided by the arts, the average payroll for those arts jobs out there. That helps to paint a nice picture of the economic impact that the arts really do have. So again, we really try to push away from the starving artist. It sounds good, but it's really not. It's really not the case anymore.
Yeah, and I kind of find that myself too, Jay. A lot of people don't know this. I used to be the managing director at Tappers with Attitude Incorporated, which is a 501(c)(3) arts organization that supports the ongoing teaching and passing on of tap dance. And they also have other percussive arts. So you can check them out in Tacoma Park, Maryland. They went home. They had been in Silver Spring for a while and they went back to Tacoma Park years ago. But the thing about tap dance, and I want to bring this up because this is another reason we need Americans for the Arts and we need this kind of advocacy, is there is many art forms that there is no written language for.
Mhm.
So, for example, tap dance is one of them. There is no language for tap dance other than the choreographer, the teacher passing it on to a student who then memorizes it and then maybe passes it on to another student in the future or to another dancer that they're working with in the future. So there is no other way to maintain this work except the student to teacher relationship. And I know, like in ballet, and I talked about this a little bit with Shana Carrata from Dance Tampa Bay, there is some language for ballet because there are certain specific moves you do in ballet, and their language is French. And so, these different moves, but they are the only one. I mean, nobody else really has it. With music, we have musical notes, and you can learn to read music. If you're a singer, you learn to read music. Artists, they learn how to paint, and there's a methodology, and painting's also passed on from student to teacher as well, because everybody who paints a little bit differently. The Impressionists are a good example. They were the bad boys of the 19th century, and they were all called Impressionists, but none of them looked the same. They all kind of do their own thing. So is this something that you think we need to work on? Do we need to try to find that support for better collecting this information before it disappears?
So I'm going to answer this in maybe a slightly different way. So obviously, we want to preserve all the different art forms, and we want to make sure that arts education in our schools is maintained and expanded. Unfortunately, arts education is one of those things that gets cut very quickly in our school systems. But that's the problem is, kids though, across all social economic classes, if you have an arts class once a semester, you're on average going to score 100 points higher on your SATs. You're going to be absent from school less. You're going to be 4 times more likely to get a ribbon in a science fair. All these great things. And again, this is across all social economic classes. And so don't so say, oh, of course, yeah, the rich kids get it because they're going to a school that has the arts. We find in the Title I schools that that's actually where it really helps them catch up in reading, writing, and math, stuff like that. And so you have that aspect of the arts education, just making sure that kids get a good overview of it. So the idea behind that is, how do you teach for the jobs that don't exist yet? You have to think about, you have to teach creativity and innovation. and now they'll be ready for that job that doesn't exist yet. And so when we've talked to Fortune 500 CEOs, we said, what is those skills you're looking for in future employees? Two of the 10 are in creativity and innovation. And again, that's arts education. There's no little, checklist of how do we teach creativity or something like that's out there. And so we really want to make sure that that stuff is maintained because it will help our students be more effective in STEM. I say STEAM, science, technology, arts, STEAM, science, technology, education, arts, and technology. The
Right.
arts connect, engineering and math. So it just helps them be better students there. Now, with regard to protecting and maintaining the various different art forms, that's an inherent problem, challenge, and opportunity here in the United States.
Mhm.
When I asked a group of people, what is the American culture? What is the American art form? I'll get 100 different answers because art is different to every person that's out there. If I am in, say, Greece, for example, and I said, what is art? They're going to point and they're going to have a very definitive role of what art is because it's such a classic embedded into their society. Because we're so big here in the United States and we're so diverse, the arts are all the places from tap dancing to square dancing, or I took a little square dancing in gym class in high school and junior high. It's all over the place to the more formal theaters, languages, and so how do you, as an elected official, especially on the national level, support all those different art forms? You really can't, individually. And so that's why the National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for Humanities are such important organizations, is they try to support everything that's out there. At Americans for the Arts, we don't even try to define art. If it touches your soul, that's good for us, stuff like that. So trying to work out there to maintain all these different art forms, I think it goes back to arts education in schools, and then working with like groups like National Endowment for the Arts, your state arts agency, who does the same thing. They try to have a great support of all the different art forms. I'm a former commissioner of the Virginia Commission for the Arts. One of the places that we would fund is the handbell ringers of Virginia. Think of because they were unique. That's some art form that really was nowhere else in the state. So we want to ensure that we maintain them because while you might not like bell ringers or tap dancing, other people do. And so it's so important because it just weaves into the fabric of the United States, of who we are and all the great stuff that we have. And we want to keep it. And so that's, I think, how we do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm with you. I don't think there's one definition of art other than it is the human spirit finding a way to express itself. So that could be painting, sculpture. It could be like one of my neighbors is a mixed media artist, and she works with what she calls found things. So
Yeah.
those are those
Exactly.
little things like an earring missing from a pair, or
Yeah.
buttons, or interesting pieces of glass. So that is how she expresses herself. And her name's Shirley Storms, and she's a wonderful artist. And I have one of her pieces that I love. But that's really what we have to look at. And also, art ties us together as people, but it also, to your point about the handbell ringers,
Mhm.
it ties us to our history because those kinds of activities in the arts, whether it's performing arts or are the arts that we go look at, like paintings and sculpture, those things came out of an era, a period of time, and it was how people thought, let's ring bells and let's express ourselves.
Yeah, and it's how
And
people communicate it too.
yeah,
Because before written, this goes back before the United States, before written language, you communicated through the arts. Go to any Catholic cathedral and look at the stained glass windows. They are telling the story of the Gospels in this case,
mhm,
because people didn't read or write at that point, but they can look at that art form and go, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be,
yes,
a good person or whatever that game is.
yes,
Cecilia, the other thing is we've just been talking about what we call traditional arts. There's a
mhm,
whole other area of more modern arts out there, the culinary arts, the design of games, gaming, computer design,
Yeah.
That's actually the fastest growing art form that's out there. Textiles, architecture, anything where
Yes.
you're creating something from nothing using your creativity, that's the art. And so we can't pass through the world on a daily basis without, being coming into contact with something that was made by an artist, whether it be the paintings behind me that my grandmother painted, the shirts that I'm wearing, the radio that someone created behind you. It's all through us. Again, we take it for granted though. And again, we don't realize how artists have really laid into our society and made us who we are.
It's true. And people want to explore. I'm glad you brought up the digital arts because and I know, okay, again, save the angry postcards if you're going to be upset about AI creating art or whatever. Because digital art is created by people, by human beings expressing themselves in a different way. And I think that anytime people do that, you got me thinking about Yoko Ono of all people. So, and again, all you Beatles fans, whatever your opinion is of Yoko, I respect it, but she actually did something called, I believe it was called experimental sound. Like she was like not making music in the traditional
Yeah,
way. She was
yeah.
making
It's interesting.
noises.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
So she, and it was interesting. And not everybody liked it. But you know what? Some people did. And it's like myself, I love history. So I kind of tend to like more traditional art. But before the pandemic lockdown, I used to go to the Hirshhorn Museum of Art in Washington, D.C. at least once a year because it's all modern art, very modern art. And I would go and I would look at it. And some of it I would say, okay, it's that kind of speaks to me. But I'll be honest, Jay, 90% of it, I'm like, this does not even look like anybody put any thought into it. But that's me. Other people obviously like it. It's in a museum, for goodness sake, right? But it's like I love going to museums and I don't like wearing those earphones with the recordings because to me they're telling me what I should see in the
Yes,
painting or
exactly.
whatever it is I'm looking at instead of me discovering it or having my own emotional reaction to it. So and we're very fortunate we live near the National Gallery of Art, which is a beautiful museum and always has rotating shows. But in their permanent collection, they have a lot of religious paintings from the Middle Ages in Europe. And my husband and I like to play a game. We go into the gallery and we look at the religious painting and try to figure out what country it is and what year it is. Because to your point, art is reflecting where we are at that moment. So there's a lot of scenes of the crucifixion filled with very wealthy Italian business people, at the foot of the cross watching, this thing go on. And so you can always kind of tell what country it is, what year it is by how the people are dressed
Yeah.
in the crucifixion. So because to your point, that's how people used to learn because everybody didn't know how to read and write. And so you'd go look at these paintings and you would say, oh, there's a story in this painting that I can learn from. And so that's another thing about art that's really important. And also, again, the people painting in the caves, they were telling their story. This is what happened to us today. We were out hunting and we caught this beast. So we're always trying to leave a message. And to your point, again, pictograms were very important in the development of written language eventually because we didn't have it. And the oral traditions we have, bringing it back to North America and your point about different regions of the United States, we have a lot of oral storytelling tradition in the United States as well. So, like in Appalachia and some of the other rural areas, people did not have time to go to school. And so everything was stories. You were told a story and it's passed down from person to person. And there's a lot of projects that have gone on in the 20th century capturing those stories so they're not lost because
Mhm.
as people move away, or die, those things are gone.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I love the Library of Congress has their oral history project or whatever it's called there, where they invite people to tell their stories
mhm,
because people are lead fascinating lives, and it's wonderful to do that or to collect those and to learn and listen.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think most people are very interesting, even though like we don't think we're interesting because we're with us all the time. So it's like, well,
Yeah,
that's just my life, right? But it's like you
yeah,
start telling people your story and they're, oh, wow, that's so interesting, But I kind of joke around about being famous in the future because I do this podcast and I write blog posts. And I'm like, someday a digital archaeologist is going to find all of the stuff I left behind, like in 500 years. And I'm going to be like famous in the future because they're going to say, look, she's got all these podcast episodes and she wrote all these blog posts, how interesting. And that's the thing is like, we want to leave behind some evidence that we were here. And that's another important part of art because we know these artists, even though they've been dead for many, many years. Van Gogh, Da Vinci, even though some people argue he's more of a scientist than an artist, but he was also an artist. Michelangelo, dead for centuries as well. But we still know who these people are, and we're still looking at the cave paintings in southern France.
No, absolutely. And you talked about, Da Vinci's an artist or a scientist. Did you know that Nobel Prize awardees are 17 times more likely to play a musical instrument? Because it helps them,
Somebody,
to
oh,
be
actually,
think that
yeah.
innovation or to think more creativity about whatever the problem is. And so science and art should not be in conflict. They go very, very well together there. And so, yeah,
Great, because a lot of science, when you think about it, starts with the imagination. It starts with a
asking
theory.
a question. Yeah.
It's like I think there's
Period.
something called relativity.
Mhm.
And that's very imaginative. To your point, Einstein was very creative. And I believe he was one of those people who
You
played an
played an instrument, yeah.
instrument. Even though I don't think he ever won a Nobel Prize, but which people think he
That's
would
interesting.
have. I
Would
don't
have
think
think.
he did.
Hmm.
But yeah, a lot of people do. You think I'd be better at math because I used to play musical instruments when I was young. I played the piano and the mandolin, and I loved it. But it does help your creativity. And and I don't write them down, but I make up songs all the time because it's just fun. Like I'm always making up parody songs or I just sing a song. Like I like to play a game because I like musicals. Unfortunately, I am married to someone who does not. But I grew up listening to musicals because my parents loved them and they love to sing. And so I like to sing too. I'm not very good at it, but I do it. But sometimes I play a game called My Life the Musical, and I will like sing my day, kind of like they do in an old musical. You know how like
Okay.
people will sing, well, like people are walking along singing a song about I'm going shopping or something
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I kind of do that and it's fun and nobody hears me except the dogs. So it's
Mhm.
like it's fun. But that's kind of the thing, when you think about what a musical is like, people are singing all the time. And it's like people don't do that,
Yeah,
It's like in Oklahoma, she's singing about
yeah.
her Surrey. Well, actually, it was her boyfriend singing about her little Surrey with the fringe on the top. And it's like nobody sings about their cars, right? Or their
No,
carriages, but we do in the movies. Or like another classic from Oklahoma is there's a character named Judd who's feeling sorry for himself. So he sings a song about poor Judd is dead because he doesn't think anybody's going to care, if he
mhm.
dies. And it's like, yeah, we don't do that either, but we do in the movies,
Yeah,
in the
so you
musical.
bring up a good point. So far I've talked about how arts can help with a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, the arts also bring us joy,
Mm-hmm.
whether we are making or consuming that art. It can make us joy. Okay, so when I drive into work, I pass the Washington Monument and the U.S. Capitol, the Jefferson Memorial, and when I'm paying attention, because I take it for granted, but when I look, I smile because I'm like, that's really cool. Those are cool architectural structures. When I
Yes.
do go to the theater, or when I do go to the ballet, or wherever, it's joyful. I enjoy that evening. I take, it with me when I leave. I leave a little bit of my stress behind. And so that's the other thing where, we don't want to discount that too. Art and the creative economies, they bring, joy to our souls. They make us hopefully a better person. I also hope that they make us more understanding of people who don't look and act like us either. That there's other perspectives that are out there. And I think, we can use that. I always say the arts are one of the last things that really do bring people together. And we should take that as artists should take that as a serious responsibility to, hey, my stuff brings people together. And gosh darn it, we need that.
Yes. And Well said. And I support that 100% because I think, I'm just going to say this. I think people in the United States think you've got to be like an expert or a professional to do art.
Yeah.
Or, and I don't think people realize everybody can do it. You can enjoy it. Even King Charles III does watercolors.
Mhm.
And he even said in an interview, I'm not really good at it. I do it because I enjoy it, but people seem to think there's value in it because I did it. So what he
Mhm.
does is he gives his watercolors to charities to
Yeah.
auction off to raise money. But
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not that good at it, and I saw some of his paintings and I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
fair assessment.
You
He's
know,
honest with himself,
yeah.
but he does it for the love of it because it makes him feel good, it helps him relax, and he loves nature. So doing watercolors
Good.
helps him enjoy nature.
Yeah.
So,
You
and
know,
I think, that's the thing we need to encourage people to do.
yeah, absolutely. So one of my techniques when I'm like meeting with an elected official or their staff, and I'm kind of getting a type of thing from them, I'll just pause them and say, "Oh, hey, Senator Sepp, what is your art form?" And they kind of do one of these things at me or whatever, and then they stop and they think and they go, "Well, I play the piano." Okay, okay. Again, they don't really think of themselves as an artist, but once I stop and I ask them that, they really do like, oh, well, yeah, I get, yeah, I'm not a professional or anything like that. Or they'll say, I enjoy the theater or whatever it is. I've never had anyone that's like said, well, I don't do anything with the arts. That's preposterous. Of course, everyone has some interaction, but again, it's also kind of pushing through the narrative of you have to be a professional artist to be an artist. We all have a little bit of creativity in us, and I think that's what makes us a human being, is being that special creative force in nature.
That's right. And, I think we look around, humans used to be nomadic more than anything else. And we would wander around and see these beautiful things. And I think we wanted to find a way to express how we felt
Mhm.
about these beautiful things. One of the things I often think about with the Puritans emigrating to North America is they were really world-class journalists and that they all wrote diaries all the time because they felt as part of their belief system that they should practice introspection regularly. So I read an article about them years ago where the author of the article said, and I wish I could remember the name of the article, but he said basically they came here, they landed safely, kissed the ground and thanked God, and then reached for their pens to write down their reflections of how they felt. And one of the more famous early women poets in North America, and I'm saying North America because it wasn't the United States show, it was Anne Bradstreet. And very much like Emily Dickinson, no one even knew she was a poet and a writer until she died, and they opened her trunk and found all of her work. And one of her more famous poems is Verses on the Burning of My House. So again, expressing her humanity and her feelings about losing her home and everything in it
Yeah.
in a poem she wrote later. So that is really another great example of how humans have tried to express themselves artistically through the years. And the work you're doing at Americans for the Arts, Jay, is so important because the arts are always under fire. It doesn't matter how good the economy is or how bad the economy is. People, it's like you've already mentioned, people cut arts programs, they cut all the things related to arts programs, art teachers, music programs, they might cut band. They get rid of all of those things that, to your excellent point, help people be better thinkers and be more creative and eventually more innovative. And that helps us just do better all around. So this has been like such a fantastic conversation. And I know you and I both love the arts, and we could probably go on for another hour and a half, but I know we shouldn't for now. And what will we talk about when you come back? Because hopefully you will come back next year.
Oh, I'd love to come back.
That would be,
I was go ahead.
I just said that would be
Oh,
great if you
oh
come
yeah.
back.
I'll just kind of leave you with this, get back with my government affairs hat on or stuff like that, is, talk about the arts to your elected officials locally, state level, federally. Advocacy doesn't need to be scary. It's not scary. You're talking about what you love maybe what you do if you are an artist. So all my artist friends out there, make sure you are talking about what you do, because what you do is important. To everyone who just enjoys the arts, or maybe is a non-professional artist out there, do the same thing. Let people know, let elected officials know that you value the arts, because if they don't hear from us, they're not going to appropriate money for the NEA and NEH and stuff along those lines, or they're not going to pass creative workforce policies to help people be, get training, that are artists, or to go back into the workforce, or they're going to cut arts education programs in schools. The more that you can talk about it, the better, And I've seen in my 20 years, I have seen a shift where the arts oftentimes still get cut, but they're not targeted as much as they used to. So that's important. So we don't have the big target on us as much. There's still places, but we're seen more and more as an essential part of our arts education, or our education program, of our economy, and just also making us a better place to live. So I'd love to come back and continue the conversation with you, Cecilia. It's been a lot of fun.
That's lovely. And, that sounded sort of like the one thought you'd like the audience to leave with today. But do you have a thought besides what you just said, like one thought you want the audience to take away today and think about it and act on? And then how can they get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more?
I would say this is, take time when we walk through life and appreciate the art that's around you. Because again, I don't even do it. We get so busy in our lives, we don't appreciate. It could be anywhere from the car that we drive, because that's art, to the actual go to a museum. Please go to a museum. It will make you a happier, better place. Go to the symphonies, go to the operas, and go to the ballets, because they're wonderful places to make you a better organization. And so that would be my parting thought. I'd love to hear from you. So my email address is my first name, so JAY at ART as in Tom, S as in Sam, USA.org. J at artsusa.org. I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, that's great. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Thankful for the Arts Month.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, we have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next time with another exciting episode. You don't want to miss our fourth and last episode in this series, Thankful for the Arts Month, where we will be talking with Trudy Hughes from the Aramount School of Arts and Crafts, and we're going to be talking about art for all. So a great next conversation after talking with Jay today. So if you would like to find this episode and share it with your friends, because you're going to say, wow, Jay made such a good comment on this podcast, you should go listen to it. You can find it on our podcast page. If you're interested in our blog, because you never know what the heck I'm going to be talking about, and frankly, most of the time, neither do I until I say it, check out the blog page. I usually write a new blog every week. And if you are interested in getting some CAE education, specifically in the area of ethics, if you're looking for an ethics renewal, or you just want to learn more about ethics, you can check out our ethics course and watch for our updated list of CAE education for 2026. Also, if you would be interested in working with Rogue Tulips Consulting to see how we could help you bloom outside the box, check out our services page and let's have a conversation, because I'd love to talk with you and maybe work together. So that's it for this week. On behalf of Jay and myself, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
That's it for this week. I hope you really loved this episode as much as I did. Thanks for listening. Learn more about how our experience and knowledge at Rogue Tulips can give your organization the strategic edge to reach its goals. Check out our website at roguetulips.com. We'd love to talk with you and see how we can work together. Thanks.